Truth is, we've said it here many times, the world is controlled by pedophiles. Our government is occupied and controlled by pedophiles, and that they will do anything to protect themselves from being exposed. We've talked about this mutual destruction agreement that Israel and the Jew has with those that they control in our Congress and those that they have on tape doing unthinkable acts with kids. And we've correlated that, we've tied that many times together with we will actually go send young American men, Christian men, to go and die in these forever wars that we have been fighting now for decades to protect these pedophiles, and that all of these governments have been set up as illusions as part of this script. These are the group of people that you have to choose from that you're going to submit to. These are the people that you are going to consent to be governed by, and you're going to pay your taxes, and you're going to fund the agenda that is greater Israel, that is the greater aspirations of these strange people, of this tribe, which is to usher in the Antichrist and to rule over all of humanity. Well, now we've seen this uptick because there were news reports, of course, of Benjamin Netanyahu announcing an official military occupation in Gaza. Now, we have been over these numbers before, but I think that it's really important to discuss this. Previous to this October 7th false flag attack that Israel definitely allowed to happen by Hamas, which is an entity that Israel funded and created with the help, of course, of the United States taxpayer and the military-industrial complex, the American war empire, so that they could use that as the means to justify this occupation that we're now seeing. And we said from the very beginning that this is going to be a bloodbath. They're going to go in here, they're going to displace everyone, they're going to annex this region, they're going to make it unlivable, they're going to turn it into rubble. And then we saw Donald Trump standing in the White House along with his spokesperson in the White House Correspondents' Office, pointing to all of this rubble and saying, these are unsustainable living conditions. Life cannot be sustained here. There is no food, there is no water. There are no working or functioning hospitals in Gaza anymore. Not any of them. The last working hospital was bombed by Israel, by the Jew. They don't have food. They don't have water. These conditions are not sustainable. But the White House never wants to point at who made these conditions the way that they are. They don't want to talk about who destroyed these libraries, entire rows of housing, who destroyed these churches, who destroyed these hospitals, who blows up schools that are occupied by kids, and then we get told, well, there were members of Hamas that were hiding amongst them. And we have highlighted in every way possible on this program that there is nothing, there is absolutely nothing other than brute military force that will stop the terrorist state of Israel, that will stop the ambitions of the Jew to accomplish greater Israel. Now, Iran is obviously the last domino that stands here. And when Benjamin Netanyahu was not satisfied with Donald Trump being slow on kinetic confrontation with Iran, we started to see the uptick in all of this talk about Ghislaine Maxwell, all of the uptick in the talk about Jeffrey Epstein and where are the flight logs, where are the tapes. And that was the media propaganda machine, the weapon of the Jew. This was the BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, Soros-funded media that was pointing and shining a light on these Epstein tapes, which obviously a lot of it organic, because we do have the right to, and we should demand that we see who it is that's on these tapes doing these things with these kids. And we know that the whole house of cards comes falling down. The empire of lies completely crumbles. This form of government and other governments throughout the West, these actors that are playing these roles, all of this, these people have no safe place to hide. That's my feeling. They have no safe place to hide anywhere on earth if 8.5 billion people see these tapes and know what these people did to them. These are household names. These are people that you look at. These are celebrities. These are high-ranking government officials. These are CEOs at Fortune 500 companies. These are big banking executives. These are athletes. These are entertainers and singers and actors. These people that you know, household names on tape implicated in these blackmail operations that Israel admits and the Mossad admits to using to capture, as they call it, these high-ranking government officials so that they can influence foreign policy decisions, so that they can influence unelected bureaucrats that decide how many bombs and on whom we are going to drop them get dropped today. How many 70 million pounds in bombs, is that what we're going to say? These people making these decisions are on these tapes. These people making these decisions are protecting others that are above them, that they work for, that they answer to, who are on these tapes. And so we took to X the other day And we just started asking Grok, hey, Grok, does Ghislaine Maxwell have any siblings currently or in the past that work for the United States government, specifically the intel community? If yes, detail the positions that they've held, any ties to Israel, and any perceived conflicts of interest that this revelation could hold. Grok was honest, pulled information from all over the internet, pulled information from verified sources. Of course, we're told that that's what AI is supposed to do. It's this unbiased machine. And Grok responded, yes, Ghislaine Maxwell has siblings with U.S. intel ties. Christine Maxwell co-founded Chiliad, providing data mining software to the FBI's counterterrorism warehouse post 9/11. This was the Patriot Act that we've talked about for so long. Americans were begging to give up their rights to privacy, begging the government to surveil them so that the Muslim extremist radical towelhead sand wouldn't come here to our soil and bomb us. Remember, we were told that over and over again. It was like safe and effective. If we don't go there and kill them, they will come here. They want Sharia law here. They want to attack us. They took our towers down. And then Americans cheered on the Patriot Act. Getting back to this, Ghislaine Maxwell's sibling, Christine Maxwell, has ties to this data mining software company, which is used by the FBI's counterterrorism warehouse post 9/11 and enables searches across agencies like CIA and NSA. Isabel Maxwell led Israeli firms and is deeply plugged into this. So Ghislaine Maxwell's sister runs a company called Chiliad, whose technology enabled this company to essentially control key aspects of FBI intelligence operations and connect them to broader U.S. intelligence networks like the CIA and the NSA. The creators of ISIS, the creators of Hezbollah, the creators of Hamas, the creators of the chaos that we see abroad constantly. And it's this boiling pot that now we're seeing, obviously, world leaders who are being pushed up against the wall with their backs against the wall are going to be forced to decide if they are going to intervene in all of this. One of them, of course, being the world's boogeyman, Vladimir Putin, the BRICS alliance, his alliance with China and Xi Jinping. Obviously, these people are now saying, and then you have the factors weighing in where you have Canada and select few other countries. As a matter of fact, we covered this on the show the other day. The United States looks like a pariah state when it comes to this issue of recognizing Palestinian statehood. So with all of this kind of bubbling up and America saying, and our government saying, no, we're not going to recognize Palestinian statehood as Americans, we set ourselves apart as this pariah state. This is Trump doing what we told you that he was going to do from the very beginning, which is delegating 100% of our government's resources, including military force, including, weapons, including the money that it takes, and yes, including the personnel, the boots on the ground, the young Christian white American men that once again will be sent to go fight and die on behalf of the Jew. And we have veterans on tape, which we'll get to here in a minute. I'll actually pull this up after we get to the Based Report. But there are veterans who are starting to understand this. Iraq war veterans who are saying, I wake up with night terrors. I am burdened by an unsurmountable, unfathomable amount of guilt. I went to Fallujah. I went to Iraq. I was in Afghanistan. I was in Benghazi. I was wherever my deployment was. These people, these young men and women are starting to realize, men predominantly, that I went and killed families. I took and tore apart families. I killed children. I killed their dogs. In Fallujah, remember, under Mad Dog Mattis, the Marines went in there and they killed everything that had a pulse. They killed dogs, they killed cats, they killed kids, they killed women, they gunned down, they mowed down entire families. And this was justified by Mad Dog Mattis. Those Marines would have been strung up had Mad Dog not gone in and said, we did this for these reasons. And so he was the champion of the Marines who got them off from crimes against humanity charges where these guys would be swinging from a length of rope until dead. And any serious country, any morally upright country would have seen to it that these war crimes were stopped. But since October 7th and the justification that has been used, citing October 7th as that justification, and the amount of so-called hostages, which we cannot confirm the validity of these tapes, but we see people who are allegedly, purportedly Israeli soldiers that are being starved to death in Gaza and Palestine by the Palestinians, by Hamas. And so there's been this this really viral video going around and these pictures going around of this one Israeli that's starving. These are the conditions in Gaza. And going back to what I originally started talking about, the unsustainable living conditions that include the lack of food, the lack of nourishment, the lack of water and electricity. Everybody in this region that was once occupied by 2.25 million Palestinians who for 5,000 years have called this their homeland. They have never left despite the rocket barrages. They have never left despite their women being raped, their kids being raped, their families being abducted, tortured, ending up in mass graves, cut to pieces. They've lived in this open-air concentration camp with nowhere to go. They can't swim away. They can't fly away. They don't have the economic resources. When they get rides out of there, they're gunned down. If they try to flee on foot, they're gunned down. They're inside of this concertina razor wire. They're inside of physical barriers. It's like shooting fish in a barrel. These are women and children. And we've been screaming this with every bullhorn that we can get a hold of, climbing atop every rooftop, shouting this as loudly as we can to get everybody's attention, that this is going to turn into the obliteration of an entire people. This is going to turn into, this is an ongoing genocide. And this was deemed as controversial or hyperbolic or disinformation. We were slandered here. We were defamed in the media by every single mainstream network. These members of our government, these elected representatives, these congressmen on Capitol Hill, they can't keep my name out of their mouth during Senate confirmation hearings, during all kinds of different congressional GOP inquiries. When was the last time a GOP inquiry made a difference in your life in a positive way? All of Trey Gowdy's investigations. These people can't keep my name out of their mouth as they slander me as a racist, an anti-Semite, a Jew hater, a hate-filled, violence-inciting, racist, bigoted, hyperbolic conspiracy theorist who's angry and just shouting nonsense on the air every day. This is how they've slandered. This is how they have depicted an entire movement of serious people who are looking at a very serious situation and saying, this is the fake government that is controlled by the puppeteers on Rothschild Boulevard in Tel Aviv. This isn't racist. This isn't anti-Jew hatred. This is the truth. And because of that truth, now we're at this pinnacle. Now we're at this point where just a few days ago, 3 days ago, all of these networks, CNN, I believe, was the first one out on this, started hinting at the fact that Benjamin Netanyahu was considering the idea of an official full-scale military occupation of that region, which was home to 2.25 million people before these war efforts started, war efforts on October 7th. There are now 1.8 million Palestinians living in this region. 500,000 of them are gone. Where are they? Well, they're not at Mar-a-Lago partying with the president. They're not on the beaches of Vero Beach at Costa d'Este Resort. They're not on the golf course. They're not standing in line at the 7-Eleven. They're not getting off of a bus that went and saved them to bring them somewhere in the middle of Western civilization and drop them off into the UK or here in the United States, where they come with rightful indignation, where they come with justifiable resentment for America and for the American war empire and its governmental apparatus and its people who have financially been backing and supporting the open-air prison camp that they have been living in since long before October 7th. The media just wasn't telling you about it because they hadn't carried out their false flag attack yet, where the Jews could justify saying that every moment, every door that they step through, every morning when they walk outside, every time they turn their blinker on and make a right turn, that they're facing another pogrom, that they're facing another Holocaust, which is the exact crimes that they're carrying out in Gaza and have been since long before October 7th. Well, now here we are today. Benjamin Netanyahu has officially announced this full-scale military occupation of Gaza. If we have seen since October 7th 500,000 people who we now know are dead, there's no other explanation for where these people are. They're dead. They're under the rubble. They're in mass graves. They've been cut to pieces, or they've been sold off into child sex trafficking. This is what's happened in an unofficial, no occupation. This state hasn't occupied the region.